Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. We want to thank our newest Patreon family member, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard. And, this is quite a fun ride we are on at this point in time. And again, it depends on how we view it. But when we look at things from the very, very big perspective, these times are absolutely times where we will learn a great deal.
We do. And, we can look at things from the perspective of what we were taught growing up. We can look at things from the perspective of what our professors and other teachers taught us. But at some point, people realize that, not everything is what I was told. And sometimes things just really don't add up in your life. Sometimes things happen and you're just sort of left with, wow, what was that?
And you might be saying, what is that?
Yes.
As you look at, to me, this looks like a dendrite. It's again, we could take this as one single cell, and we can basically look at things from the perspective of as above, so below, as within, so without. The macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm. And I got to tell you that in the desert, one time I had an experience with some fungus. Let's put it that way. And when I had that experience with that fungus and looked out into the night sky and saw the stars, this is how I saw them. It very much like this. Every single star connected to another. It was one huge neural network. That photo that we've shown in the past of a neural network, and then how it looks like the universe that we see with our visible eyes. The only difference is that we don't necessarily see the connection, but it's there. And well, with the help of fungi, I saw that connection, and this was exactly what I saw. One star connected to another, everything part of one giant web of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much out there, and all of it looks very disconnected by some angles. And then, when you pan out and you have experiences, you are able to start connecting these things, and then you can see the network and how things work together and why they work together. And a lot of times people get hooked right there, and they want to know more. They want to know more and understand this crazy world we live in.
Well, the reality is that what we've been told is not even remotely close to the true reality that's out there. There is this interconnectedness with all things. And yes, absolutely. The universe is what we would call a fractal. And that is the natural matrix that we find ourselves in. There's a natural matrix, and then there's the dark matrix within the matrix. And this is really key and critical to understanding really the situation. When you look to the individual cells that make up the tissues, that make up the organs, which make up the organ system, which ultimately keeps the organism going, it's again a universe. It is a universe. Each one of us, our bodies are universes. And yet our bodies are just one tiny little aspect of us. That's our vehicle for traveling through this 3D reality.
Mm-hmm. This is what we use. This is what we use to have our experiences in. And it is, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It has a purpose. It's limiting because it has a purpose. But there's ways to, kind of unhook those limits, and there's ways to free yourself a little bit so you can have more of an understanding through through your temple, your organism, your temple, your body, your temple. How clean is that temple, and what do you put in that temple really makes a big difference about how you're going to experience this journey that we're all experiencing right now.
Absolutely. When we look at this great adventure we're on, it's a journey that is founded in oneness, apparently leaves the oneness, and eventually comes back to the oneness. And yet this journey of what we would call the soul is one that is not understood by most people on the planet. Here you see one little diagram trying to give an explanation for how things work. There are some things that we have gotten from the guides that may appear to be contradictory in questions asking about ourselves, and our past incarnations. For instance, I know I had an incarnation in Russia, which, basically was between, let's just roughly give the years of 1840s to about 1908. And I know I had an incarnation there. However, I also had an incarnation going at the same time in which I was physically here in the USA. And how could that possibly be? Well, again, this is a little chart that tries to give an explanation for that. As you see, there's a lot of other little lines that should be here in reality. You have the source of all that is. There is a source. And then we do have our higher selves, and we do have something called the oversoul. And yes, there are soul groups as well. And you may think that you are the entirety of yourself that's embodied in your particular vehicle at this time. But the reality is it's just a part of you. And there's much more to you than most people understand. And so when we look to the oversoul, there could absolutely be other incarnations of you going on. Just sharing from my experiences right now, I know I'm also embodied. The bigger part of me is also embodied over in Southeast Asia right now, where from what I've seen, I'm probably somewhere in my early 30s over there. It is coming from the same higher self and oversoul. It's a part of me that's having an experience over there at the same time as here in the United States talking to you.
What I really like is Mike, when he talks about being embodied somewhere else, that's information that he got firsthand about him. It's good to have someone to show you the ropes in this journey, but the most important things that are needed to know, it happens directly to you. It's your experience. That is your knowing. And in a world like this, the crazy world that we're in, so many teachers can lead people astray, and they are. And that's why we really advocate for people to learn for themselves and understand for themselves and know for themselves. I mean, we can give a lot of information, but the information that is the most accurate is the information when you have an experience and you see it and you know it and it's nailed and it's like, wow, that's me. That's what I did. That's mine. That is mine. And I know that it's mine. There's nothing wrong with getting a little bit of help. There's nothing wrong with getting guidance. But I do caution people to never lean so much into someone who is teaching you that you lose your own essence. Just take that information and hold it somewhere. And then when it comes to be useful to you, then, apply it when needed. But this is your experience. This is your path. and be sure that you're the one walking it, because there's nothing like those experiences like Mike was talking about, when you know that you know that you know that was you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that you know, and somebody can't take it from you. And so, that person over there is me, and yet is having a very different experience, because that person's in a much busier situation. I could see there's a lot more activity around. Here we are relatively isolated out in the countryside. There, it's more like on the fringes of a bigger city. So very, very different. But then again, the higher self has different things that the higher self wants to learn and experience. We learn through direct experience. We can, theorize things all day long, left and right. And still, it's until you have those experiences that you don't really know, you believe or you think. There is a big difference, and this is what Cindy's trying to get across, and did a good job of it. The direct experience is something nobody could take from you. So, I've had flashes too of this other life. And it could be also why in this life I had no desire to be anywhere cold, because, the last life that I know more details about, a lot of details in reality, was mostly spent around St. Petersburg, Russia. So pretty cold, not warm at all. And hence, that desire to stay in the more semi-tropical or tropical areas. Yet at the same time, I do know that I was in, let's say, the area around New Orleans in a previous life, and had met certain individuals that have turned out to be beings that we could contact and converse with because of these past relationships. It's like, old friends. And, this is the reality. We don't understand. Most people, if you are coming from the mainstream religious background, then you really don't have a clear idea how the universe truly works. It is not so simple as, okay, Adam and Eve, apple. Yeah, no. It's way more complicated in a sense than that, and yet at its essence, when you understand what's going on, it really isn't all that complicated when we look at how life truly is, and how, again, these cells that make up our body are all individual units of consciousness, each one distinct, and yet they're part of a whole. And this perhaps gives you a little bit, deeper look at it from a graphic point of view. Every single universe is just a cell, and then yet it is so big and expansive. And there's so many individual consciousnesses coming together in something bigger. And that is exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I like this picture. This is a good picture. I think I would move it and turn it a little bit. When I was in front of Source, and I could see Source, and I could see all the lights and the information, and with every light, it was either a life, or it was a thought, or it was an emotion. So I was able to look from Source out into what Source was expanding into. Or I was able to look the opposite direction, and I could hone in on a particular life, or I could hone in on a particular thought, on a particular emotion. But the most important thing for me in that moment, well, there was several, but one of them that's just coming right now is the understanding of love. What is love truly? And what is this world about? And it is about our experiences, and it's about our lessons, and it's about those things that we learn, however hard they might be, however many tears you may have cried. Those lessons were given to you out of love, and during this journey, many people finally come to that understanding because they look back and they see, oh, wow, if I didn't have this experience, I couldn't have this knowing. And if I didn't have that experience, I would not have met that person. And they can look at their lives and they can start to make out the silver lining through all the traumas that they had. And pretty soon, these experiences that we call traumas are no longer traumas. It's expansion, and it's expansion out of love. So, I like this diagram. It works. It gives you a good concept and an understanding. You'll never find anything that's exact, because there's no way outside of these bodies that we have enough words that can explain really, really what's going on. We are created deliberately with filters. So if anyone ever claims to say, oh, I know everything, oh boy, you be careful of that, because no, it's not explainable, not in these words. You would have to go into about 3 or 4 different languages, plus about 3 or 4 different light languages, plus bring in your dog and your cat and your horse and everyone else and look at their perspective and understand what they're saying about it to really get a full understanding of how this world works outside of your body. There's so much to it, but I like this diagram.
Yeah, this is a good one. The book, How the Universe Works, which is out of print, we referenced that several times. It has diagrams like this in it. It was done by a Pomono shaman, explaining reality from their perspective. And again, the shamanistic point of view is the view that is, in our opinion, the most accurate. You can find a lot of accuracy in the Hindu tradition, also in all the indigenous traditions around the globe. That's where the secrets are. You could also find it in the Western mystery tradition, hidden in Gnosticism, hidden in Hermeticism, and the Kabbalah, again, all to a degree. No one system is right. They're all basically different slants on the same thing. Some have some strong points that are maybe a little more accurate than others, and others might be more accurate in another sense. In some ways as well. And again, the universe is a fractal. And, what this means, again, that systems repeat themselves. You see this throughout nature. When you look to a leaf, you can see the similarity between that and a series of rivers that lead into another river. We could see that in our vascular network. There is a reason why all these things are similar, yet the scale can be dramatically different. This is the programming per se of this particular universe, which again is holographic in nature as well. So it's a fractal holographic universe, a projection from a different density. And this is all done so that the soul can have a very, very immersive experience and learn and grow.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're able to pull in different aspects of yourself, or different understandings and different concepts that help you with the life that you're walking now, the journey that you're on now, for purposes of expansion.
Absolutely. So, this is really what we were first looking at, but just taking a step back and seeing the webbing. This is the web of life. This is, at the same time, the mind of God. This is the neural network that we exist in. And, as above, so below, as within, so without. There's really nothing on the bigger scale of things that we have to fear, because, again, in the 3D, this is our vehicle. At some point in time, we leave the vehicle behind. My first car was a 1970s Chevy Impala. I'm not driving that car anymore. It was a good car for what it was, but it was time to move on. This is simply what happens. We move on.
We do. But before we do that, we have so many experiences that we cram into this body. It's just crazy. And one of the experiences that I did have when I went to Monument Valley, I mean, it's a very sacred area with with shamans that really, really know and understand and work with the land. I had what a lot of people call a walk-in, and we know other people that have had them as well. When you go through something in your life, and sometimes it's very, very traumatic, sometimes it's just a series of events, and later on you look back and you say, what the heck happened there? But people having car accidents, popping out of their body, or having an accidental drowning and momentarily popping out of their body. Well, when they go back into their body, it's like everything has changed. Everything has changed. And so often they bring another aspect of themselves, or even another soul might step in and want to have some experiences, or another soul could step in and assist someone with their life path. And I had this happen at Monument Valley, which is really difficult to explain to friends and family. So I don't talk to my family about it, because I think that they worry about me. I really do. And I don't want to upset them or worry them. But this is something that happened after I went there. And there was an experience where a Hopi shaman had died, and that night the storms were so wild in that area. You could tell that the elders were just doing some crazy work. They were having rituals, they were doing what they do, and they were really stirring up a lot of the land. And that was the night that I ended up with a walk-in. And I don't feel in any way, shape, or form that when I started, I had shamanic abilities, but after this, it's like I had more shamanic abilities, a lot of shamanic abilities. So what I feel happened is this being was looking for a compatible vessel that they could inhabit to continue their work. I feel they were not done with their work. They still wanted to do more, and there was things that needed to be done. And somewhere in the world of contracts and souls, there was an agreement, and that's what happened. So I have a little bit of this extra energy inside of me of a Hopi shaman that assists me in so many of the sessions that I do on people. I have an understanding. I learn new things. Whenever I work on someone, I'm learning something new, which is really fun. I mean, it's really amazing. And I can see from the 3D to the other dimensions pretty darn easily, and then have a quick understanding even without being taught. So that's the fun part with me and these abilities. It's like I don't have to be taught or shown. What I'm doing is going back to my own network, and I'm pulling that information, and it's just coming forward as I need it. So now it's like gravy, whereas before I might have struggled to understand and know what was going on when I would see certain things. And plus I had no understanding or anything of my abilities. And in many cases, that got me in a lot of trouble to not understand my abilities. And everyone, there's a level of responsibility that needs to be taken when you are very sensitive and life happens. You got to learn to get control of yourself, because this life is difficult and it is painful. But we have to find ways where we can reel ourselves back in and get ourselves grounded and centered and say, okay, let's go on to the next step. So it's not easy out there for a lot of light workers, but it's still up to us. We still have got to find ways to get grounded.
Absolutely. So this event that happened at Monument Valley, when you look at it, In reality, that shaman that might seem like he had nothing to do with Cindy could be from the same soul group, oversoul, somewhere along these lines, and simply is at that point in time then able to transfer over and to join Cindy. Cindy is still the person that we know as Cindy is still the dominant force, yet there's this added entity that is transferring skills and wisdom to her.
Right. So it's about compatibility. It's about compatibility of the vessel is what I see. And it's something that people go through, and they might not always understand or know what they have gone through, because as we travel in this life, we get a deeper and deeper understanding of what this life journey is about, and we come to these understandings and conclusions that are not mainstream in any way, shape, or form. So everything that everything Mike and I talk about is definitely not something that we really take from a book, or we take from personal experience and our knowing, and that's what makes these experiences and these knowings so important. You might be having experiences and not even know it. That's the problem. And it might not be time for you to know it, but when the time does come, you will be able to look back and say, oh, well, that's what that was, and that's what that was. Don't let anyone tell you what your experiences are. Again, it's okay to get ideas, but don't let anyone just literally tell you what you're going through. You get to discover that for yourself. This is your journey.
Absolutely. So, if something happened in this life, it could be that this aspect of myself would join that other incarnation over in Southeast Asia and help guide them. And all of a sudden, people in their circle might feel like, well, you seem different. There seems to be a change in you. Well, that's because, there's a new guiding force, a new influence that's come into the circle of influence of that particular incarnation. I remember doing I created a black scrying mirror when I was in my 20s. It was just something that was coming to me. And I started to, do the tarot as a guide on a regular basis in my early 20s. And really what I was doing was pulling some dormant aspects of myself back in to my circle of consciousness. We are all collectives. This is the thing, too. You ever feel conflicted, like you can't make up your mind, is it going to be A, B, C, or D? Which way do I want to go? Well, again, you are more than one being having conscious conversations with yourself, which is really a collective group, as, we have these guides that are with us. And at different times, different ones will speak up and give more information. Like when Cindy is working on somebody energetically, I could almost see, everything change. And she shifts. There's another persona that becomes dominant. And, that persona very much is a shamanic one.
Well, it's really interesting when you're dealing with someone or dealing with things, and you are the one asking the question, and then you get these answers, and when you ponder that a little bit, it's like, okay, well, if I already knew this, where did that conversation come from? So that's when you start to learn, okay, there's different aspects of me at work, and there's this knowing and understanding that comes immediately at the speed of light. So it's fun. It's interesting. It's something that a lot more people are learning these days, which I like.
Absolutely. So we hope you guys got something out of this. Please do share your thoughts, comments, your own life experiences with each other, and we'll keep growing this family and also growing our knowledge base together. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.